Okay, we are in our Sample Rock Castle construction file in our QuickBooks desktop program, and we are going to reconcile our business checking account. As you can see, I have the View Balances area on the left toolbar, navigation bar opened up, and you can see that our current balance in our checking account register is $49,325.63. But I have my bank statement sitting right here, and it shows that my balance as of December 31st of this year is $49,971.76. And I will also let you know that the person who was reconciling this account forgot to reconcile for the month of November, which is not a bad thing because you can actually reconcile more than 1 month at a time, and that's what we're going to do to catch up. So here we go. We're going to go ahead and when you do that, you want to make sure you have both bank statements with you as you're doing this. So let's go ahead and click on over in the banking area. You'll see a button that says Reconcile. Let's go ahead and do that, and it's going to open up a box. As you can see, I already started the process. I put the statement date in there, and this was the beginning balance as of the end of November, or as the beginning of November. And then the ending balance is the balance that I entered from the December 31st bank statement, which is why I have the date here changed. And this is not an interest-bearing account. If so, you can actually enter that information down at the bottom and then change the date. Sometimes it'll default and change for you. But we don't have to do any of that. So we're going to go ahead and click on the Continue button, and that's going to take us to our page. Now let me go ahead and unmark all and show you what I did, or what we can do. First thing you want to do is you want to hide transactions after the statement's end date, because all that'll do is it'll just confuse you. And I know it looks like a lot of stuff here. A lot of stuff here. And if you're working with one statement, it's easier to go ahead and use your total for your deposits and other credits and checks and payments to make sure. But if you're working with more than one statement, you'll probably need to add those amounts to make sure that these kind of match up. But what I'm going to do, and I know this might sound counterintuitive, is I'm going to go ahead and mark everything. Because what happens when you do that, you look at the difference, because you always want to make sure that the difference is 0. And you hope that the difference is not that far off, because if it's not that far off, then you can probably go down to the end. You can actually sort by date, and let's do that. We're going to go ahead and put the most recent transactions on top, and that'll make it easier for us to work with. Let's assume that our deposits are okay, because everything from both of the statements match and this total is fine. We're just worried right now about the checks and payments. So we want to get that $646.13 balance down to 0. So we look at our source documents, and if we look at our bank statement, we can see that we have 3 checks here that have not cleared. This 517, this 518, and 10080. Those have not cleared the bank as of the statement date. So if everything works out the way that it should, if we unclear those check marks, when we can do those one at a time, and as you can see, the amount will dwindle back down until we see that when we do take those 3 checks out, then we can see that our difference is 0. So everything is fine. We can go ahead and click on the Reconcile Now button. Which I did, and it's just taking its sweet time to go ahead and open up. And you'll see a little box will open up in just a few. There we go. Now you have a choice. You can either view both of these reports at the same time. You can choose between a summary, detail, or both. I always like to do the detail and then modify it, and I'll show you what happens when we do that. I never recommend just printing it out without looking it over first, because there's always things you can do to the report to make it look better. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and click on this and get that out of there. You never want to turn off those boxes because they're there for a reason. They're to help you to know what's going on. And as I said, this is over a few months. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and customize this report. And I like to make the last day the day of the statement. So otherwise it defaults to all dates. And you'll see why that's important in just a few minutes. Now, one of the things I also like to do is I also like to move some columns around and take some things out. For one thing, we don't need to have the CLR in there because it's just kind of redundant, and as you'll see in a minute. So we're going to remove that. But I do want to add a memo. And the reason why I like to add a memo, you'll see in just a few minutes. I also want to move this date over to the front. You don't have to do that. That's just my personal preference. And being that this is a 2-month reconciliation, it's going to be quite long. So this is going to print on 2 pages. And you're going to attach both statements to it. Now we want to adjust the length of the column so that we can see all the details here. You can actually shrink up the amount in the balance columns. You don't want to overdo it, of course. But in the memo here, you want to make sure that you lengthen that to the longest entry in the memo, even if it's quite long. And you can just kind of roll through. I have one of those mouse things that you can actually roll it up and down pretty quickly. Same thing with the name field. You want to go through and make sure that you can see all the detail on that. Sometimes you can shrink up the numbers column, but you got to be really careful on that too. You don't want to cut any of those off. Same thing with this type. It's safe to say, well, actually no, sales tax payment is the longest entry, so you don't want to cut that off. Once you get your report looking, and see, this is why I like it. And then see at the bottom, that's why I removed the clear column, because you don't really need it, because all the uncleared transactions automatically get placed at the bottom. So that way you can see that those uncleared the total cleared transactions match what's on our December bank statement. And then again, also you can go up here and change the header footer. You can say reconciliation detail 2 statement periods. So that way there's no question. You have it there. The only thing is you really can't memorize this and use it again. That's the only thing. You have to kind of do this every time that you reconcile. But the extra time that it takes to do that is just amazing. So now that we have this reconcile, we can actually save it as a PDF, and you would give it a name in here and save it, but we're not going to save it. But that's what you would do. You would navigate to whatever folder, and then we're going to go ahead and print it. So the way that we have it set up right now, we want to do portrait. I don't think we would want to put this on one page. It would just be too small. But it would at least be 2 pages, maybe 3. Well, actually, you probably could shrink it up. The problem is shrinking it up the way that it is now, it's going to be hard to read. And in fact, we may even want to go ahead and set this up as landscape. That would make it where you can read it a lot better. And then shrink it up. Let me show you. And this is fit report to 2 pages high. And then you can just play around with those settings to see. There we go. So if we wanted to, we could print this and set it up. You have to do it beforehand to make sure it prints on both sides of the paper, which if you do this, you go to print report, you go to your options. And I probably should have did that before I printed, but I've got it already set on 2-sided settings to print on either the short or long. If you print it on the short edge, it's going to print the way it should in the landscape. If you do the long edge, then it's going to, you're going to have to flip it over as you see it there. So anyway, we can go ahead and click on OK, and then you can do the preview again and print. But since we've already printed it, we're closing it, and I'm canceling out of that. But hopefully you can see. And then once you save the PDF and you printed the copy and you staple it to your bank statement, then you're good to go. Or you can just keep it all electronically. You don't even have to print it out. But once you've got at least your copy saved, then you can go ahead and exit out of this. And now you're all set until the next statement cycle comes. So anyway, I hope you found that helpful. I've had several of my clients say that they like the format of this, especially being able to see the memo detail. And it's just, to me, it's just cleaner than how the QuickBooks normally has you do it. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this lesson, and take care. We'll see you again soon.